I left Burning Man with all this institutional knowledge that is so valuable to other people. I had nowhere to put it. When I would apply for jobs coming out of Burning Man, no one gave a shit that I worked for Burning Man. It was really weird. Unless you were a burner, right? I was sending out resumes and people had no idea. And I would just get discounted because they would like sort of pat you on the head. Oh, that's nice. You work for Burning Man. Nobody cared. And they would get a couple of the titillating story. Oh, is it true that, but otherwise they didn't care. And I was like, what the fuck? I spent 13 years doing this and 20 years of going and no one, I can't do anything interesting with this information. That's a tragedy. Right. And so I created a consultancy a couple of years ago now called Peak. That's my company. And what we're doing is we're going out to people who have initiatives and movements that are aimed to move the dial on the human condition and make the world a better place. And we are training them on how to do what we do at Burning Man. Build community through powerful experiences in powerful spaces and do it in a sustainable way. So I'm actively taking what we learned out there and making it happen in the real world, which feels really good to me. And I had to do that myself. No one else was going to do it with me or for me. You know what I'm saying?
It's the bureaucracy all the way to the bottom.
Yeah. And it was just it was really frustrating not have anywhere or anything to do with what's in my brain. So I appreciate and love that you guys are doing this as an oral history because I think it's super important and really valuable. So thank you for doing that. And I'm happy to drop my oral history as much as possible because I want this stuff to be out there because it's going to the grave with me is not going to be that interesting.
So we didn't get this out in time, and that's entirely my fault. You can blame Beth. That's a Beth fault thing. This is a good interview. Listen to it now that we're releasing it, whenever this is.
Now this is an official part of the season 8.
It is season 8, episode 4.
Welcome to Accuracy Third. I'm Beth.
I'm Rex.
And I'm Sick Boy.
Sick Boy D-Day.
Sick Boy D-Day.
D-Day. Coffee D-Day.
There's going to be a bunch of episodes this season where Beth and Rex are interviewing someone and I'm not there. And those of you who hear this between seasons episode, this interstitial episode, will know that it's because D-Day was a fucking wreck for a week or so in late November 2024.
Yeah, his coughs have been shaking the entire house.
Some of those are farts.
Hi, friends. We're releasing this before our new season technically starts because everything fucking sucks. And we miss you, and it's the darkest of times, and it's a shitty election, and it's a hard time for the org if you're paying attention, and things are pretty gloomy and awful here in sunny Oakland, California.
This is not a burn barrel. Neither is this regular season episode. This is a season 0. Episode X.
This is just really good timing in that Will Chase reached out to us, and we had a really great, easy interview with him because, boy, howdy, does that dude speak coherently and clearly.
And why do you think that is, Beth? Who's Will Chase? Chase. Who's Will Chase?
Who's Will Chase? Will Chase will do a pretty good job of introducing himself, but those of us who've been around for a while have lots of emails from Will Chase in our inbox.
And let's listen to Will Chase.
Yeah, I'm a storyteller. And yeah, I mean, I was to Rex yesterday or whenever we talked a couple days ago, that the fact that you guys are doing, I'm really psyched that you guys are doing this. That you have positioned this as, capturing an oral history of Burning Man, because that was actually my passion project at Burning Man that never got off the ground because we were doing all kinds of other things, and it never became a high enough priority with everything else that was going on in the moment, because we were suddenly faced with, transitioning to a nonprofit and dealing with plug and play camps and and the ticket lottery fallout and all that shit. And it sort of, got deprioritized. But I was adamant about trying to create as robust as possible a oral history of Burning Man, because I think it's essential. So much of community engagement and development is about the history, right, and the archive, and having that through line of the history so people know what they're signing up for, what the foundation is. You know better where you're going when you know where you come from. And we were starting to see founders starting to get old, and staffers started to piece out, And I was like, wow, we're losing all this history. So I had this vision for creating this whole platform that was going to be a searchable, filterable, cross-referenced data set of all the different perspectives, right? And what Rex was saying the other day when we talked was salient to that point, which is that Burning Man is necessarily a pointillist kind of perspective, right? You have to get everybody's perspective in order to have any sense of what the hell's going on out there. And I recognize that fully, right? And we, working with the org as we were, it was like, we were always looking from the inside out, right? We were looking at it was always the usual suspects that would be telling the stories every single time. Whenever we did anything, it was sort of like, we'd always kind of call up the same people who are, engaged, well-spoken, doing really cool things, people that we want, that represent the culture well. And we would stand them up to do all these different things. And it's just like, well, that's one perspective still, as opposed to all of them. So I really wanted to do a comprehensive oral history project. And I left before that could happen, which was a bummer. And Andy Grace has since, also known as Action Girl, has since taken up that mantle. And I don't know where that project is right now, but she has been traipsing around, talking to as many people as possible and capturing their oral history. And she did that for me, which was really cool. She flew up here to Portland, where I live now, and sat with me, and I dumped a whole bunch of stuff, which was very cathartic. It was actually a lot more intense and emotional than I thought it was going to be. I thought I was just going to be shooting shit with an old friend, and it turned out to be like, the stuff we were talking about. I was like, oh my God, I started to get like deeply emotional, because it's like, there's some powerful shit in there to bring up. And also, so just, the whole thing was my world, my personal world and my professional world and my romantic world, it was all just intertwined. It was all one. So there was no separation of me from it. Was extremely powerful, because it had so much influence on my life in so many different ways, more so than most. So are we recording?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've been out the whole time.
No. Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, I'm just yammering. I'm just talking for fun here.
Yeah, I think we should probably get your basic deets. Who the hell are we talking to? Who are you?
Who the hell are we talking to? And so maybe we should have people guess. Maybe we'll just do the whole interview, and at the end of it, do a quiz for people, like, who the hell was that? Okay, yeah. To let everybody know, to open the kimono, I suppose. This is Will Chase. I am the former Minister of Propaganda for Burning Man. As a sort of quick overview of my Burning Man history, so people get a sense of my arc in the overall history, is I went to Burning Man for the first time in 2001 after having heard about it incessantly during the 90s as something that I wasn't really interested in, because it was, explained to me as a bunch of hippies doing acid and shooting guns in the desert. And I was like, that doesn't sound like what I'm really into.
Wait, that didn't appeal?
Not at the time. It does now. And so I sort of blew it off and didn't, I was also in a different world, frankly, in my time. I was living in San Francisco, and I was living a very sort of normal, traditional, conservative life. And,
but like San Francisco conservative. So you're still doing the urban Iditarod and stuff. You're just not going to sex parties.
100%. Yeah. And my roommate at the time, who was a guy I really trusted a lot, told me about Burning Man. And he said, you got to go. And he went in 2000 and he loved it. And he's like, you got to go. This is for you. He knew me better than I did. And so I went with him and flipped my bit, had that epiphany, right? Changed my life, changed my world.
Was it transformative?
That's a loaded question.
That's its point.
I know, and I recognize the degree which that is a loaded question. I am an advocate for the idea of it being a transformational festival, and I'm not necessarily in the majority on that. And I've often battled Caveat, who's Burning Man's philosopher in residence, and one of the most brilliant thinkers about Burning Man. And he and I sort of disagree about that, about the nature of transformational festivals, and The going theory on it is that you don't want to call it a transformational festival because when people go and don't have it, what they consider to be a transformation, then they feel like they didn't get something.
But
like
that's its own transformation, man.
Isn't it though?
You got to come to it.
That's right. That's right. And for me, I disagree completely. I feel like no matter who goes there, no matter what frame of mind you're in, you're going to get transformed in some way, shape, or form, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not. You're going to have... go ahead.
That has been our experience on this podcast. The joke about it is we all shied away from using that term, but over and over and over and over and over again, the people that we interviewed were so clearly transformed.
And us. We can't tell our stupid stories without admitting that we were transformed by the yearly crucible that we do out there.
It's hard to imagine someone going out and not being in some way, shape, or form transformed, even if that's just influenced. And that was, frankly, the way I thought about plug and play camps. I was, and still am, happy that we had plug and play camps out there.
Hot take.
I didn't come to fuck
He
around.
said he was conservative.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I am happy, and I think it was very important, actually, that we had plug and play camps out there for a number of reasons. One is that those are the people who are swinging the big cultural bats out in the world, right? The people who are coming in with that kind of money, the people that are in those camps have a lot of cultural influence out in the real world.
That's why I'm really excited that Elon Musk is going to be a part of this next presidential administration.
For better or worse, just don't fuck it up, Elon. We taught you some good shit out there, man. Do something with it. Come on. I feel like people, have that transformation no matter what, and having someone from a plug and play camp who swings that kind of cultural bat out in the real world, experience Burning Man and see what's possible, and if that influences them even an iota to bring a little bit of Burning Man principles and spirit into whatever they're doing out in the real world, then the world will benefit from it. And because, we're only so big a megaphone, right? And the whole point with this thing that we've been doing is that it's a social experiment petri dish every year on year. And the whole point is to take what you learn in it and take it somewhere else. And those are the folks that can do that in the biggest, most powerful ways. That said, I don't like how they've engaged with Burning Man. I don't like how they've turned it into, an Instagram sport. Mm-hmm. And I don't,
a luxury vacation.
A luxury vacation.
A curated experience.
Ibiza in the desert.
All of those things. And that's really gross, right? And so for us old school burners, it's hard to stomach that. And that's the other reason, frankly, I'm happy that they were out there, is because the culture needed a thorn in its side. I mean, we've always had one, right?
What is DPW for?
Or the BLM, right?
Yeah.
But we always have, we needed a sort of a cultural thorn in our side to challenge the question of radical inclusion, right? Inclusion is the hardest of the principles. It's the most important, but it's also the most fucked up because it's like you have to include everybody. So if everyone's sitting there bitching about plug and players, it's like, you know what? Are you radically inclusive or aren't you? Because that's what it looks like. So, all that said, you don't want someone coming into your community and screwing it up. And Larry, bless his heart, and it was a very wise man, but also kind of, he could be vicious if he needed to be. He understood like the art of war, and he was, literally, and he was like, you know what, we control their supply lines. So we control, what they do and what they don't do.
Larry, the capitalist to the fucking end, motherfucker.
Right? I was like, damn, bitch. I was like, man, you're like, I didn't expect you to say that. And he was like, so that's how we ended up in the end, sort of containing or throttling, let's say, the plug and play camps, was by choking off their OSS access, meaning their outside services, the vendors that were bringing in the RVs and the porta potties, all the luxury shit that they could, then people could just roll in and just have their RV set up for them. We shut that off. Right. So anyway, that I am glad that the plug and play camps were there. I'm glad that they had the experience. I'm glad that the people that got it will stay. The people that didn't won't. And the ones that keep on, and if we influenced even a one of them, it was for our benefit. And frankly, the world's benefit. And Burning Man hasn't gotten shaken in its shoes as a result. I don't think plug and play camps have been any cause of any issues beyond just people getting consternated about it. But really, it's like everybody goes out and has their burn and gets their transformation in.
No, from my experience and perspective, what plug and plays have done is make us ask really interesting questions about what our values are out there, how we manifest them. The fact that that Burning Man Project had to do this cultural direction setting initiative is good. It's good to steer this thing to some degree.
I agree. But going back to the original question, just to continue out, to finish out my Burning Man history, just so that's on the table. I joined Burning Man in 2003 as a volunteer at the office because I was unemployed. And I met Lady B at a party, and she was the art curator at the time. And I said, "Hey, do you guys need any help?" She says, "I do." And I started going in on the regular, and I built the Material Culture Archive. So that was my first project at Burning Man. And it was actually an amazing way to get assimilated into the culture.
What is the Material Culture Archive?
I'm glad you asked. It was and still is an archive, digital archive that's available online on the Burning Man website that's kind of rode alongside the Burning Man photo gallery. And it was a digital archive of all the gifts that people created and gifted out at Burning Man on Playa through the years.
Oh, that
Super
sounds
cool.
lovely.
Super cool. So what I was doing as a matter of, the work part was I had bags, like Ziploc bags, dusty Ziploc bags full of stickers and patches and buttons and bumper stickers or whatever the hell it was.
Necklaces and
all of them.
Yeah.
Everything. It was super cool. Bracelets, you name it, right? And I would pull and other weird shit you couldn't even identify. But was somehow gifted. And I would pull them out and I would scan them. I would take a picture of them and then write the description, the year, the who made it, and these are all people who submitted this stuff. And so it was a great way to know the culture, because I was seeing all the gifts that came through, you know what I mean, and all the people wrote stories about what the what the things were about and what they were for, and da 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 da. So it was almost like an anthropological dig, digging through the archaeology of Burning Man. So I did that, and then I realized I was like, you know what, these people don't know what I do. They don't know. I haven't talked to anybody here about my skills other than just sitting here building this Material Culture Archive. And I have all these skills. And so I went to Marion and said, hey, can we talk about work and blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I ended up being the web team project manager. So I ran the web team and the website for 8 years. And during that time, at the same time, I was the director of operations for the Artery. So I was on the art council, and
that's a big job.
It was. I set up all the processes and refined all the processes that are still used today to get art onto and off of the Playa. And I ran the whole art team for 6 years, which was super fun. And on both off Playa year round and on Playa.
I don't know if we've actually had someone explain what the Artery does. If most of our listeners are not art makers necessarily, they might be working on a team. But what is it that the Artery does for the artists out there?
The Artery is a facilitator. So their job is to take not applications, but submissions of art projects from the public that people are intending to bring to the Playa. They assess them. They make sure that they're going to, they look at them and make sure that there aren't any major issues that the art's going to cause that the artist isn't aware of. They look at all of
danger or falling apart.
Moop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mostly it's danger stuff. Mostly it's high danger stuff. But then the other part is just other sensibilities like noise, light, stuff like that. Like this needs to be in a quiet place. This needs to be in a dark place or whatever, so that you can lay things out. And then so the Artery then gets all these submissions in, sees what they all are, and then figures out where they should be placed in the Playa. So they have a big map and they lay out, they plot all the pieces, and they do this according to the curatorial plan based on the theme for the year, but also, again, sound proximity, light proximity, things like that, and just keeping a nice, experience balance on the Playa.
Creating the gallery of it.
Creating the gallery, exactly. And the promenades are traditionally where the theme art goes. And so that tends to be sort of like the quote unquote the gallery, if you will, for the year. And then everything else that's sort of in open playa is more the non-theme random stuff.
So the promenades are the roads out to the man from the city?
Correct. So the promenades are the crossroads that intersect the man, north, south, and east and west. The 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You get the idea. And
the ones with the spires on.
The one with the spires. There you go. That's a simpler way to put it. So then the artery make sure that the art is being treated properly and lit properly on playa. They offer art tours, both guided and self-guided, and provide art information to the public, as well as when the fire, when pieces are going to be burning, like the burn schedule, stuff like that. And then lastly, they facilitate getting all the artwork back off the playa and ensure that the artists leave no trace. So one thing we do is they'll use these GPS. I keep saying because I used to do it. They used to we used to use GPS. This is when GPS was just brand new. And we were using GPS to place things on the playa. And the reason we did that was because later on, once the artwork was gone, we could still tell who was there, because we had, wrote down, this is the, so you could identify what art was there. And so if somebody left trace, we could call them on it and handle that after the fact. So that's what the artery does. Basically, it's a volunteer group that is responsible for facilitating getting artwork onto and off of the playa safely.
Thank you. That is a very concise definition of it.
Good. I used to do this shit for a living. So
you're killing it.
They're also one of the last remaining users of the compact disc.
Do they still put the CDs down for where the art goes?
Uh-huh.
They do. They're called floofies, is what we call them. Little pink floofies. And that's how I started with the artery. Was as a field operative, I was the guy that was riding the cart with the artists out to where their pieces went. And it was that was a great job.
Oh my God, that sounds
like
lovely.
So much fun, because you're riding around in a fucking art car, and just like in a golf cart rather, which is great. And it's pre-event, and you're sitting with these artists who are amazing, right? And you don't know how excited they are. It's like they are, and that was one of the most gratifying things about being in the artery, was seeing their faces and knowing and helping them realize their dreams, because this is so important for them. So many of these people have had such passion and dreams about finally bringing their artwork to Burning Man, and they've been killing themselves on it, and they're overdue and they're late, and their RV broke down and their trailer blew a tire, and they got there and they're fucked, the whole thing. They're so fucking psyched to have that floofy go down, man. It's like you watch their eye, they're taking pictures of it with their friends, they're posing next to it, they're crying and shit. And it's catharsis, right?
This is where the gigantic spoon is gonna go.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it was really, I've never built a piece of, is that true? Am I saying that right? Is that true? Yeah, I've never built a piece of art out there myself. The art that I built in my mind is the opportunity for us to do it, right? For others to realize their dreams out there. That's the role that I play. And to see them do that, and to see it firsthand, like someone's true passion of create, see the joy of radical self-expression was just intoxicating. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. But so starting with the material culture archive, and then going into the art, into the artery, and running around directly with the artist was just such a great way to just immerse yourself into the culture. And as coming out of that, I realized there was a great opportunity, because I suddenly knew all the artists, and I knew all the art pieces, and I knew them personally because I was riding around in a golf cart with them, and then I was helping them out from then on. And so I became friends with all these artists. I knew where all the art was. I knew where the bodies were buried. I knew where where the art was hidden in different warehouses and stuff. And so I started brokering the art out to different festivals, because I saw an opportunity there. And I'd actually gone to the org and said, hey, I feel like we should offer a brokerage where we're, helping artists place their stuff off playa. And they were like, we don't really have time or interest in doing that. And I was like, okay, I'll do it myself then. So I started Will Chase Arts, and I've been doing it ever since. I started in 2003. My first jobs were actually curating for San Francisco Decompression, which I did a few years. Getting the artwork, basically doing what I was doing at the Artery, but doing it at Decompression. And then after that, I started working with major festivals. And this is before festivals had any sense of putting art out in their field, right? It was, they were just putting up stage and a truss and throwing some music on it. And we started talking to them about, hey, you know what? If you put some art out there, people are gonna dig it. and
hippies love staring at stuff.
It means a lot more to them when they're all fucked up.
If you guys want to double your insurance, you can let them climb it.
Or lose your shirt altogether, right? And that was the main worry. Those are the concerns that you had to overcome every single time in every conversation. But I curated Burning Man art into all the Treasure Island music festivals, all the Symbiosis gatherings, Edwardian Ball, Sea of Dreams, Rothbury Festival in Michigan, and a bunch of other stuff that I've done over the years. And so that became a side business for me. While the entire time I was working my Burning Man career, I was also curating art into festivals. So that was my way of realizing the mission of Burning Man, right? Beyond me facilitating other people going to the playa, it was, how can I help get this artwork out into the world where more people can experience it? Because it was just a tragedy that only the people that were on playa were seeing it, and otherwise seeing it in a picture.
Have you been a part of getting, because I know a bunch of the art is now getting installed in parks and stuff like that, like permanent placement, which I always find absolutely delightful.
Yeah. In fact, my buddy, Yomi Ayeni, and Candice Locklear started We Are From Dust. I'm going to get this wrong, but I want to say it was 2011, something like that. I think they started. I think that's wrong, but it's a nonprofit. The mission is to mount exhibitions of participatory art in public spaces, which is a tongue-in-cheek way of saying put Burning Man art out into the world. And I joined them once I left Burning Man. In 2016, I joined them and became their president. And we have a permanent exhibition of Burning Man art at Point San Pablo Harbor in Richmond, California, just over the bay from you guys. I think we have 8 pieces there. We've got a Michael Christian. I've got a Kate Raudenbush. I've got a...
It is so sweet that you're saying these artists' names.
Yeah.
Like, when you... what are the pieces' names?
Oh, gosh. Futures Past. We've got The Crocodile. I've got Purr Pods from Paige Tashner.
We had... That's Cat Butt.
Yeah. Cat
Yeah.
Butts.
That's the one.
Paige, we just talked to Paige.
Paige is wonderful.
Paige is up in Portland with you.
Oh, she was living down in Richmond. I don't know if she...
Oh, yeah. She was up in Portland when they got installed on the park blocks for a
cool.
while. Yeah.
And that's like living there. Being in a place
Shut up.
while being alive is like
Shut
living
your face.
Paige is lovely. She is a wonderful woman. She's an incredible artist and a great community builder. I love what she does. So those are just some of the pieces. But so that's one example of a permanent exhibition that's out there, very successful, and it's a beautiful draw. And the whole point for that was to put that artwork out there in order to engage community. Right? I mean, that's what we do. And here's an interesting tangent about trying to take Burning Man art off playa out of context. I've watched so many people try, and this is sort of a cautionary tale, I think, for anybody who wants to try to do this. Be careful how you do it. There's this common misconception that you can just take Burning Man art off the playa and put it somewhere else and have it have that same experience, have that same impact on people.
Are you saying banana for scale won't work outside of
You have
Burning
to
Man?
put it on a dais.
That's great. that project, by the way, that project was awesome.
Agreed.
The best part of that was the logo on the side. I was like, that was genius. So for those of you who don't know, it was a inflatable giant banana that you could sit on and ride, and it was sitting like sort of on its side, kind of like a saddle, right? And so they put on the side of this thing, they put what did they call it? La Pequinta? Whatever does it mean? How do you say small in Spanish? Tiny? Pequinta? Something like that?
Pequeño?
Pequeño, that's it. And it had like so the logo, which is normally like the banana logo, whatever the hell that thing, Chiquita. Right? They redid that with like two fingers pinching like they're small. And then Pequeño,
I think.
So
I don't know. I'm Greek.
This was genius. This was art genius.
Agreed.
Because what that meant was, because they knew when they built this piece, they were like, every guy's going to get on there and be like, look at my big cock. So they completely used the art to completely diffuse that in advance, proactive. I was like, that was genius. Because any guy that's sitting up there going like, look at my cock, you got a thing right below you that shows that's going like small.
Little.
It's like so good. So good.
God, this was really a great year for giant small things.
Yeah.
The giant
cone,
giant rubber chicken.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what? And that's another thing that I'm very sort of passionate about and curious to watch the arc of its history over time and how it's evolving is the scale of art.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It used to be back in the day, art was pretty small and medium because that's what people could manage to pull out there. And that's how much we were, generally funding things. And then there became like the arms race for scale, right? Over time as more and more interest and passion and money came into it and people came into it. And teams got bigger, suddenly bigger and bigger to the point that they got intimidating, right? That was the problem.
Shit.
Was,
like, how
right?
could you ever imagine being part of something as huge as a bunch of these projects are?
Absolutely. So you walk out of
comb.
So Pete Hudson makes a gigantic stroboscopic animated structure, and you're like, well, what am I going to do to top that? Shame on you, Beth.
Right? Thanks, Pete. For ruining it for the rest of us.
Yeah.
No, but it's true. It's like you look at something like the Mayan warrior, right? And you don't sit there and look at the Mayan warrior and go, I could do that.
Right. You do not. Whereas the poofer
Right.
truck that just has a giant fuel tank that says perfectly safe on the side of it. I'm like,
We
can
can do
approach
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was starting to get concerned that, because the engine of Burning Man art is one-upmanship. And it's like, hey, I can do that. Or it's like I can do that, but I can do it better, or whatever it is. And once you get to the point where it's so the bar is so high, you're going to start to cleave off people who suddenly become spectators because they think I can't do that. So I'm just like enjoying this like I'm enjoying Disneyland because it's like that scale and scope. And so I was started to worry. I was like, people are going to walk up to this and they're not going to sit there and go, I can do this. And the other part of this equation was the honorarium art. And I always used to debate with Crimson about it. She headed up the art department, and I was
Just in case folks don't know, what is honorarium art?
And who is Crimson?
We can pretend they all know the basic humans, but what is honoraria?
Crimson Rose is the one of the six founders of Burning Man. She's an awesome woman, and she's known as the Fire Goddess. And she was running the art department when I was there, and she was in large part an instigator of making Burning Man art possible out there at scale. Bless her heart. And honorarium art is art that has been partially funded by Burning Man. An artist will come up with
very partially, just in case anyone knows.
I'll talk about that part for sure. So artists would submit proposals about a piece of art that they wanted to create usually on theme, and ask for certain funding. And the art department would look at all the submissions and select the ones that we wanted that we wanted to fund that we thought deserved funding. And we would give them partial funding. We would never give them the entire amount that they asked for. And that was intentional and not just being mean. The intent was that it would force the artist to go out and engage with their community, right? In order, to get volunteers, to get more funding, to get resources, whatever it was, and therefore build community and therefore build their teams, get more people building art. And it worked. And it still does. It's a cruel proposition to get a partial grant, to be honest. But
damn, I didn't know there was such a good justification for it. I'm going to use that in the future. Thank you.
Here's the
get me a pizza. Here's $3. Figure it out.
Here's the underlying truth about Burning Man. As as infuriating and that's not the right word. As confusing sometimes as the decisions seem to be on the outside, there is absolutely 100% solid, logical, careful thinking behind it, almost overthinking. We thought stuff to death in the org before we put it out, and we, in the communications team. So actually, I should let me pause that just for a second.
Go back to your bio.
Go
back to my bio.
Transition in your bio.
This is I'm segueing myself. I left I left the web team, the tech team, in 2008, and joined the communications team and became Minister of Propaganda for Burning Man.
Which is a great title.
Thank you. I bestowed it upon myself. And, it was tongue in cheek, but at the same time, it was real. I picked it was funny, but also because it was real.
We all need to be reminded of what propaganda is, good and bad.
Yeah. And it's like, that's what Burning Man is, that's what this thing was about. It's like the propaganda is the joke, right? So And it's so funny, so funny because so many people thought that I was, that I was serious about it, like it was a Nazi thing, and a lot of people would throw it back in my face, like, "See, they're Nazis." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You don't get the joke. If you don't get that joke, you shouldn't come in the first place." It's like, you clearly don't belong. You clearly don't understand that we grew up in pranksterism.
Some people just love advertisements.
Yeah. So I was Minister of Propaganda, which meant I was responsible for all the public-facing written communications that came out of Burning Man during my tenure there. And that included running the website and the blog and all the social media and the Jackrabbit Speaks. So I was the Jackrabbit for 8 of those years, which was amazing and super fun. But I was the idiot that got Burning Man on social media in the first place because it was an up and coming thing, and I was that's where the people were. It's where the conversation was. And Burning Man had started with an email line, but that's fairly limited in its
Which was the first
scope.
Which was the first social media that Burning Man was on?
Facebook.
And still there in a weird cesspit.
And I apologize.
It's not your fault, but it does feel better that you apologize.
Will,
it's very much my fault. No, I put together the pitch that said we should be on Facebook, Twitter, and I think what was the other? Oh shit, not MySpace. It was another one that was out there. Oh, Tumblr. And I was like, we don't need to be on Tumblr.
Fuck, Tumblr was great. Guys, you don't know how artsy the porn was back in Tumblr days.
So I got us on social media because I was where, like I said, it was where the conversation was and where the people were. And a mailing list, a newsletter is great, but you're just getting your audience. And then whoever happens to forward it to a friend, which isn't going to happen. But social media has that slop, right? That slop.
Slop! That's perfect. Thank you for articulating it so well.
So you'd get people, you get the ambient, and that's where it really took off. And I those years for me, I mean, and for Burning Man, looking back on it, the aughts and the teens were like the seminal period of Burning Man, really. And just in terms of this growth and just this how important it became to everybody, and it became a common noun in American parlance, right? Mm-hmm. Where it certainly hadn't been before. And so it was great to be a part of that process and that effort, as Minister of Propaganda and putting all that stuff out there. And so this is why I'm like a Burning Man walking encyclopedia right now, because it's just like I know way too much about way too many things as a result. But I guess to wrap all up. The last thing I did was I was 7 years, I was the lead tour guide for the external relations team. And the external relations team was basically Burning Man's lobbying arm, still is. And it shortened, so external relations team shortened to XRT. And what we would do is we would invite in people who we wanted to have understand Burning Man better. So governors, mayors, art curators, gallery owners, whatever, anybody who was, somebody of potential interest that Burning Man would want to have on their side, We would invite them in. We'd give them a ticket. We would put them on an art car for 90 minutes, and I would drive them around the playa, and I was your Burning Man tour guide on the mic. And, so I can do a 90-minute blather about all of Burning Man culture. And I also did those in dust storms, which was insane. Because it was like literally getting on a bus with these guys and you cannot see shit, right? You're in just a whiteout and you're just like driving around the playa for 90 minutes seeing nothing. And I'm trying to explain. Imagine if you will.
Well, that is a quintessentially Burning Man experience.
It was.
You're sending these folks home with the real knowledge. Will, I want to just take a moment and say that I feel your regrets. I founded the Burning Man subreddit. We all have done harm, and we all must be held accountable.
See, but we paid for it at the same time, though. Dude. I moderated it for 8 years.
Oh, not on Facebook?
Oh yeah, all of it.
Oh,
the Facebook, the blog, you name it, I was there.
So this is just a for realsy question.
Yeah.
How infuriating is it that people don't understand that there's no choice the org can make that would make everyone happy?
Oh God, it's par for the course.
Yeah.
We got used to understanding how to parse the comments, right? And there was always the 10-10-80 rule, right? 10 extremes, crazy is on either side, and then the middle is somewhere that you should bother listening to, quite frankly. And so you got used to just sort of cleaving off the edges and entertaining it a little bit. And then, you just sort of focus on the middle. But it was a pain in the ass, man. Burners are very smart, and they're very on top of things, and they're very opinionated.
And they're very engaged, and it means the fucking world to them, like it does to everyone. Like that is something that I see in the Reddit community is like, oh man, it matters so much. And that's why everybody's fucking mean and shitty about it for some reason.
Which is way better than having people not care and then shitting on it. You know what I mean? It's like, I appreciated when people were truly passionate about it. I listened to them, even if they were really pissed off or whatever. It's like, I get it. I spent 8 years moderating that stuff, and for better or worse, and the PTSD is real. I haven't gotten on social media since. I mean, I'm on Instagram, and that's it. I literally can't look at it anymore. I can't. It was definitely damaging.
Yeah. You don't want to stare into the void of hosters.
No. And I'll tell you, one of the more interesting times in that, the arc of my time there was the ticket lottery.
When was the ticket lottery?
That was 2011.
Oh.
Is that right? 2011?
Yeah, that was
something like that.
That was my first year volunteering. It was the first time I got to skip the ticket line.
Right on.
It was the first year after the first time the event sold out, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
That was the question. Like, so now we're selling out. How do we address demand exceeding capacity?
Yeah, and just for further context, right? Burning Man had never sold out. Burning Man started in 1986, started selling tickets around 91, and then has never sold out. And you could always just walk up and buy a ticket at the gate, never have to worry about it. And then 2010, we suddenly sold out. The very nature of your success, right, going up. And so 2011. The solution was I was not Minister of Propaganda at the time. I was managing the communications. Actually, was I? Shit. I was Minister of Propaganda. Yeah, I was. I had to think about it. It's like, God, I can't even fucking remember anymore. I was Minister of Propaganda at the time. So I was sending out the jackrabbits and moderating all the comments and all that stuff. So the powers that be had decided to do this lottery and basically like have everybody submit an application to be part of the lottery, throw their hat in the ring, and then, we'd pull names out of the hat, as it were, and then you would get a ticket. Bingo. And I wasn't part of that decision-making process at all. And it got handed down to me of like, hey, announce this, right? and I'm sitting there and I read through, and this is like literally the day, I think the day before we were going to launch it. I didn't have any time to like react, right? I read through it and I was like, oh shit. I was like, I know exactly what's going to happen. Everybody, and I suddenly...
Everyone is going to love this.
They're going to be all over this. And so I go, I go to the powers that be, and I say, guys, isn't going to go the way you think it is. And I said, what's going to happen is everybody's going to get their brother, their mother, their grandmother, and every last person they know to register for that lottery. And those people are going to get those tickets. And suddenly you're going to have all of these tickets in the hands of people who aren't going to actually use them. And you're going to have a whole mess of people who don't have them that need them, that we need to have them because they are the ones that are going to be building the city. And that is exactly what happened. I panicked and I was just like, oh my God, you can't do this, guys. We have to. And it was like too late. And we did it. And I was just, my job went from what I thought was the greatest job, dream job in the world into a hellscape in a matter of a day. I mean, I was literally like, it was the biggest whiplash I've ever had in my life. And, like everything that I loved just suddenly turned to utter shit. And it was just like, oh my God. And then I was on the brunt of it. I had to, and this isn't a pity party for Will Chase at all by any means. I bore the brunt of everybody's vitriol. And, I had an inbox that was stacked with fuck you and all forms of it, and I sat there and answered every one of them because that's what I had to do. Is it not because I wanted to, because I knew we needed to. It wasn't my job necessarily to answer all those people, but I knew that we needed to because they were legitimately pissed and rightfully pissed. And I felt I had to diffuse every single situation, every single one.
You had to ranger the entire ticketing area of the event.
One person by person, yeah.
Oh,
dear
I remember,
I understand that I am a tiny-dicked twit. That said, I do not run the ticketing department. These decisions are made above my pay grade.
You're fine, sir. Yeah, it was kind of like that. No, but I addressed them all very personally, and I addressed their exact thing that they were bitching about, so that it was clear that they were talking to a human being, and it diffused them every single time.
Yeah, but that takes so much work on your side. Like not like time, like deep emotional, like painful, empathetic work.
Yeah, but what trauma other than something like that would ever keep you off a platform like Facebook? So it makes sense why he's gone.
That one certainly did it. Yeah, that one certainly kicked me in the nuts. No question. But yeah, the ticket lottery was really unfortunate. But what came out of it were interesting things. I actually, this isn't to toot my own horn, but this is just for for the posterity, I suppose. Is I invented STEP out of that.
What is STEP?
STEP is the Secure Ticket Exchange Program, because I realized as I was looking through this thing, I was like, oh my God, there's going to be all these tickets in the wrong hands that need to now get to the right hands. And there is no process for doing that safely at all.
You stopped scalping.
Correct.
Yeah.
For a quick minute. So what I did was I said, I was like, oh, you know what we need is a secure ticket exchange program. That's it. STEP. That's what we need to do. And I designed it in my head, and I said, this is how it works, and how this is, and we built that system, and that's what exists today. And DGS, same thing. I remember right after the ticket lottery fiasco, there was a whole lot of board meetings at senior levels that I was involved in to talk about it and figure out what our response was going to be and how we were going to do this. And I was sitting next to Larry, and I knew what needed to happen, but I wasn't going to say it out loud. There was no fucking way I was going to say it out loud. And we were going to, I just sat and I laid out all the things, and other people in the room laid out all the situation of where the tickets were and where they weren't, and what what was happening to theme camps in that, right? Because a lot of these theme camps didn't get the tickets they needed to fund to get their entire crews there. So they were like, we're not going to be able to come, right? Major, like opulent temple, right? Shit like that. Mm-hmm. And Larry is sitting next to me, and he goes, he comes to the realization that we have to curate Burning Man. We have to say who can come, like who's more valuable than somebody else for the first time ever, which is antithetical to who we are, of course, right? And he sat there, and I looked at him out of the corner of my eye, and he's like, He was like, we have to curate Burning Man, huh? And I was just like, okay, he got it. he got there, and because he needed to get there more than anybody else. You know what I mean? He needed to come to terms with that. But it was just the reality. I mean, he was
it's a tough pill to swallow. I mean,
yes. But Larry's also a very practical man. Like I said, he like knew the art of war. You know, I mean, he was very, very smart. And not, you know, and social genius, absolute social genius. And so he'd recognize what needed to happen he also always held the long view, right? Where everybody else was looking at the day-to-days of, you know, the day-to-day roller coaster of what's fucking up and what's working. He was always holding the long view. So even then he knew it was a tough pill to swallow, but it was one that was necessary for the greater good.
Well, someone's got to.
Were you at all involved with the Dicky box?
Yeah. Actually.
Sorry, you may not have heard her, but Beth was angry that I asked that question because she wanted to hear your answer.
Well, she can edit this fucking episode then, can't she?
Different kind of duocracy. You do it. Actually, yeah, the Dicky box is one of my favorite stories about Burning Man. So I was operations manager for the Artery at the time, and we got this submission for an honorarium called the Dicky box, and I remember it was just a black and white, and the front page of it had a geometric square, like a cube. And that was it. And I was like, what the hell is this?
Box.
Read the thing and I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right? I'm like, you're going to do this? So to explain to people what I'm talking about, the Dicky box was an art project where it was a 10 by 10 square box with plexiglass walls that one person would live in during the entirety of the Burning Man event. From the beginning of the event all the way to the end, never leave it. So he would have everything he needed in there for basic survival. So he had like a bed, he had a compost toilet, and a chair, and I think one set of clothing, and that was it. And there was a drawer in the box that allowed like a banker's drawer that allows for no physical contact with him. So, but people could gift him things by putting it in the banker's drawer and sliding it into him, but they could never touch him. They could never have physical contact. And then people could talk to him in the box through this hole that was drilled into the plexiglass with a grate over it. And there was a little step stool that you had to stand on in order to step up to this portal to be able to speak to him. So it was like this, it was intentional that you had to get up on this thing to talk to him. And I didn't know this guy at all. And I was running the Artery, and I was really concerned about this piece because this is a piece where somebody could die, right? This is a David Blaine kind of shit. And I was like, this guy could die out in a plexiglass box on the playa, and it's 100 degrees out there, right? And so I was very conscientious about taking care of him. And I made sure, like, I went out and visited him every day, usually 2 or 3 times a day, just to make sure he was okay, you know, and see if he needed anything. But people were bringing him food and clothes and gifts and crazy shit.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the box had a roof, so he wasn't like standing under the sun, and air conditioner. So he was
correct. It had AC.
He was in survival conditions. Yeah.
And it was one of the more fascinating projects out on Playa, and I praised him for that. It was funny because they did this big reveal on it, which was really cool, and because they had on the plexiglass, they had that blue vinyl stuff that like they use in like to deliver the plexi
so
stuff,
it doesn't get all scratched up.
Right. And so that was still up as they were building the piece. And then he, you know, like as the event was about to start, he gets into the box, they close the door, and then he's in there dicking around. And then eventually he like pulls down the blue vinyl, and that's the reveal. And it was just like this moment. It was just, and there's this massive crowd around him, and everyone's just going nuts. And DPW fucking loved this thing for some reason. I still don't know why, but the DPW just loved it. And it was just, and I once he revealed, I went up to his little portal, his little voice portal, and I went out and I had bought a Penthouse magazine. and I told him, I said, I want to thank you for building this piece, because this is a piece this is changing the game. This is the first piece out here where the human being is the art. I said, you've completely flipped the idea and experience of Burning Man art on its head. Thank you. And I said, now you're going to be in here for the next week, and everyone's going to be out here getting laid like crazy, and you're not going to get shit. So the least you could do is jerk off to something good. So here's a Penthouse for you. So I shoved that in the door, and I went out and saw him every day, and we became fast friends and have been friends ever since. We still are. And yeah, he's part of my core friend group. Dickie Davies. He's an amazing artist. Amazing artist. I have a bunch of his art hanging in my house right now.
That's I'm kind of stoked to hear that. We recently watched the rough cut of the Dickie documentary.
And saw you say that.
Did I?
Yeah, you sure did. Yeah, you're in a movie, my guy.
All right. I gotta check that out.
Well, I don't know if it's.
I gotta get my AMD.
The link will be in the show notes.
Fair enough.
The characters in the documentary are Dickie and Logan, and we know what happened to Logan, but none of us have any idea what may have happened to Dickie. And it's nice to be talking to Dickie's friend. I love that piece. I think that might be it's hard to say that something is the best piece of Burning Man art, but it's the most unique piece of Burning Man art.
I agree. It's up there for sure. I mean, it really was a milestone. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It really did, it really did change things. And one time I was in an interview one time with Jane Heaven on KPFA, and, we're shooting the shit about various things. And then out of nowhere, she says, what's your favorite piece of Burning Man art of all time? Which is, hard question, right? It's like on the spot, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I thought for a second, and I was like, Free Mayo. And she's like, what? She was like, excuse me? I said, it was called Free Mayo. I said, it was a gallon jug of mayonnaise that someone stuck out on the playa with a sign next to it that said Free Mayo. That's it. I was like, that was my favorite piece. And she's like, really? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, don't you get it?
It's quintessential.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, that is Burning Man art, right?
That's exactly it. It's the quintessential piece of Burning Man art, because it's silly, it's funny, it's accessible, it's site specific, it's accessible in the sense that it's inspiring other people to do it. Because you look at that and you go, someone just did that.
Mm-hmm.
I could do that.
I could do that.
Yeah.
If I was witty, I could do that.
Did you see its the iteration upon it this year? The Mayo hand sanitizer dispenser.
Oh yeah, I did.
People thought it was sunscreen.
That was my friend Meredith who did that. I saw that. I was like, that's terrible.
It was the first.
Meredith is brilliant.
It was so good. The first time we ran into it, it was coming outside of commissary into gate, where it was just
a perfect spot.
Absolutely.
That's where I would have put it too. How to get your ass kicked at Burning Man. I did. I saw that and I was like, oh, you didn't.
People were rubbing it into their faces.
Oh, it's so gross. And it's so cruel to do that to somebody else.
Oh, yeah. It's like,
I would have been livid.
It's pretty gross.
It's very clearly labeled.
Not for the visually impaired.
I want to know. This is the classic question. Like, who comes up with this shit? Who sat there and was like, I know what we'll do.
Genius people.
Yeah, someone who has 3 too many hand sanitizer dispensers.
I just love how one of my favorite things about being out on playa is all the conversations are like, what are you going to do next year? Like, I got an idea, and it's like some of the best, craziest shit comes out. I want to just record people talking about like, I got an idea.
Yeah. I mean, out there, though, it's so easy. Everyone is like, yeah, totally. I'll show up for meetings in the fall. 100%. I'm there. But there's a lot of good ideas.
Oh, man. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, I wanted to hear about Borg 2.
Yeah.
Mm.
When we started this podcast, I had 2 hard and fast rules, only one of which I've broken. My 2 rules were I will not do any editing. I hate editing. And my second rule was we will never interview Chicken John. And I do most of the editing now, but we will never interview Chicken John. I'm radically inclusive up to a point. And that point is him trying to sell me his book at my friend's wedding at Burning Man.
Oh, yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds par for the course. I appreciate that perspective. And at the same time,
Dear sir,
regardless, he is an undeniably important.
You can talk about him.
I know. He used to run like cleanup. He used to run LNT, Playa Resto back in the day. Like that's the class. He has classic stories about like the what do you call them? The muffin top porta potties. And
Oh.
he'll tell you those stories if you want.
The nightmare of year 2000.
It'll get you the clicks. Yeah. He was always the thorn in my side whenever we'd see each other. Definitely love-hate relationship. He would see each other and he'd just give me shit about Burning Man and tell me what we should be doing and what we're doing wrong and why Larry's all wrong. I'm just like, okay. Hey, can I just go grab a drink?
You joined someone else's band. It wasn't even your band.
Boy.
All right, but we're cutting all of that out.
Yeah, cut that out. That's fine.
It's just, I'm not cutting me out, but it's just going to be disconnected me shouting a couple things about chicken. But he had this initiative called Borg 2.
Yes. So the genesis of Borg 2 was, well, first off, that the Burning Man organization is colloquially called the Borg. We never call it that internally because it's terrible, but that's what people outside tended to call it. So I told there was the Burning Man Honorarium Art Program, which still exists and existed back then, which is the process by which a small council within Burning Man, including Larry, including Crimson, including a couple other people in Lady B, would determine which art pieces deserved an honorarium from Burning Man. And Chicken John, along with Jim Mason, came of the perspective that it should be democratized, that selection process should be given out to the community to choose. And
Fair enough.
Fair enough on the face of it.
Uh-huh.
But there's basic structural problems with that, right? Where there are certain things within, the honorarium, in that art selection process that the general public just can't wrap their heads around it, but need to. In other words, things about safety.
Less than popularity.
Feasibility.
Right. Feasibility. Is this team up to snuff? Are they actually going to do this? Or are they just going to, are they going to put the money up their nose? Or are they going to actually make art out of it?
Or they're going to leave a 747 on Playa.
Or are they going to leave a 747? So all of those things, like, that were the nuances of that went into the selection process, were nearly impossible for the general public to really understand and grok and put into a reasonable decision about what they want to fund. The other part, so it became just a popularity contest, right? Where people would just get as many people to vote for the art piece as you can, and that's not right either.
That doesn't work. No.
Yeah. And so they were adamant that it would work. So so Chicken John and Jim Mason created Borg 2, which was like the other Borg, and they started to print manifestos about the democratization of Burning Man art and that process. And Larry was on the other side of the equation, and he was having none of it. And he entertained their ideas. He's a very open, thoughtful man, and listens to other people's perspectives. So he was open to the ideas, but he also saw the practical, the impracticalities of the execution, and he just knew it wouldn't work. And so we had to do that diplomatically, right? We had to sort of shut it down diplomatically. So the way we did it was we let them go. We said, okay, fine. You guys curate one section of the Playa. We'll curate as we do, and let's see may the best team win.
Wild. I had no idea that happened. What year was that?
oh God, was that 8? I think that was
2008 or 9.
Oh, wow.
right.
I was there in '08. But
So there was one section, so then section of the playa that year that was Borg 2 art specifically. And
was it American Dream or was it a different theme?
08 was American Dream.
Yeah.
I can't remember if the Borg 2 stuff was on there. Someone should double check me.
One of them was a big inflatable flower.
If you check the Burning Man timeline, which was one of my favorite, which is one of my most prized things that I created for Burning Man, was the timeline.
Link in the description if D-Day puts it in there.
Yeah. Go definitely do. If you have not checked out the Burning Man timeline, you should. It's really, really cool.
I'll co-sign that.
Yeah, it's really cool. I was really proud of the work that we did on that. So Borg 2 had a section of art. So they ran their democratized thing. They funded a bunch of art. They put a bunch of art out there. It was okay. It wasn't great.
I'll co-sign that.
Yeah, it was decent enough. It didn't blow anybody away by any stretch. And the movement kind of fizzled after that. If I remember, I can't remember exactly how it sort of petered out.
Well, turns out it's hard.
Turns out it's hard, and that they
Chicken
didn't
started instigating someone else.
Yeah,
that's exactly it.
I mean, that's what that guy does.
He didn't want to do the actual legwork of continuing the process.
Yeah, if he's not trying to curate Burning Man for Burning Man, he's shitting in front of people's little coffee kiosks in Dolores Park. That guy is always up to something.
So there was never a Borg 2-2.
No, I don't, not at least not that I'm aware.
But that should be the theme next year.
But it was an interesting experiment, right? It was an interesting.
No,
moment. Yeah, go ahead.
You revealed to me something which I had no idea that the Burning Man project or whatever it's officially called that isn't the Borg, like gave space and allowed space for someone to come in and try something, and it was actually them not being willing to do it long term.
Yeah, I mean, and again, you could tell from the voting process and the way that flowed that it's just that you weren't getting the best results out of that process, and I think the cracks in the argument became apparent once they actually tried to execute on it. Because a lot, and this is also common and true across all Burning Man commenters, is that a lot of people think a lot of things are easy. They aren't. And they think things are like non-complicated and such a simple answer, and they're just not.
Yeah.
A lot of people think a lot of things about stuff they don't do.
Yeah. And like I was saying before, Burning Man is extremely deliberative about everything. And we talk shit to death. And this is what I was coming to earlier, was that we used to have a wonderful communications team when I was there that was balanced really nicely. And we had just the right people in there and the right perspectives and the right voices to consider any questions about Burning Man's evolution and where things were going and what we wanted to, where we wanted it to aim. So Burning Man, like perspectives on Burning Man are just like the political spectrum, same thing, right? You got your conservatives and you got your liberals and you got people in the middle, and meaning like how you interpret the 10 principles, how strictly, right? And so we were really good in the communications team, because we had people with who fell all across that spectrum. We were able to really debate anything that came up. Like plug and play camps. How do you handle plug and play camps? We talked about that ad infinitum, and there were different, everybody had different perspectives. Like, well, there's radical inclusion. Well, they're fucking up the culture. Well, they're, Well, they're doing that, and the dialectic from that was really, really effective and worked really well. So that the decisions that came out, from that were really well hashed out. And so you can trust, believe me, if anybody's worried about this, you can trust that if a decision has come out of Burning Man, it's been thought to death. But the problem, and I'm going to be this is being very, very honest and frank right here, Burning Man is also really good at making bad decisions as part of that process, as a result of that process, because Burning Man is very good at deliberating shit and answering all the micro questions in ways that make sense, that lead to a result that doesn't make sense. And sometimes they fail to sort of fly up to 35,000 feet and go, wait a minute, that isn't right. So you can sit there and make micro decisions that make perfect sense every single time. We need to do this because that. Oh, yep, sure, of course. Make this. Okay, I can do that. And then and next thing you know, you're saying we need a ticket lottery.
I'm also like maybe trying to run a fair and kind organization under capitalism is just kind of impossible.
That's an interesting point too right now, right? Is this was built, this was never meant to scale
No.
like this. And it started as an experiment, a family picnic, and then it became an experiment over time. And then it was like, can we keep this going? During the aughts and the teens, we were building by intuition. You know what I mean? We were doing what needed to be done and what seemed right to do. We weren't working off of any fucking playbook. And
clearly,
we were by necessity. We were making it up as we went along. And now it's at a size and a scale and the cost, right? The vendor cost and all the shit, just the cost to produce the event have far outstripped the ability to, pay for it with ticket sales at the current ticket rates, unless they jack the prices up to $1,500,
which opens the conversation about accessibility and what are we even doing if people can't come unless they're rich.
Yeah. So we are at a very, they're at an inflection point, and that is very real about, because in the last few years, cost of everything has gone up exceptionally. Like, all the main vendor stuff. Like,
oh my God, just fucking plywood. It is so much more expensive to build out there or anywhere.
That's exactly right. And, porta potties, power, ply, you name it, any services, whatever, pumping, all that stuff is like, exceptionally more expensive now.
Bulk ice.
Mm-hmm. And so it's all outstripped, what's possible. So now you end up in a crunchy period, right? It's like now, Burning Man is all bells and whistles and fun when you're in abundance, just like it is on ply. But suddenly when the mud hits, what do you do? Right? And what I'm concerned about...
Cry. You cry.
Driving.
And what I'm concerned about is that when the mud hit a couple of years ago, the community solved it, right? We didn't tell people what to do. We didn't look to outside people to do shit. The community solved for it. And that's what should happen right now. When in crisis, lean into your community, lean into your principles. This is what we've done all along, right? We've been leaving trace on that playa since 1991. It's fucking insane, right? That's insane that the amount of shit that we've been doing out there and still leaving no trace. We can do anything if we're instructed in how to do it and given the permission and the opportunity. And I believe that's true about this too. And I'm concerned right now that the way the communications are flowing with it all is more around browbeating people, frankly, into saying like, you guys didn't spend enough on our pricey tickets, so now the event's at risk, and now you have to fund all of Black Rock City and the year-round nonprofit operations, or the event gets it. And everybody wants is basically like holding the event hostage. And that's not a good way. That's not a good look.
I have a lot of empathy for how incredibly difficult it is. And I don't know how you speak directly to burners at that kind of scale. I don't know how you be genuine on that scale.
We'll chase this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's so much a part of it, right? It's so much a part of it. I don't know how to put this properly, but when I was Jackrabbit, I got a lot of feedback from people about how connected they felt to my writing. And, and there was no like intention for me, about like how I was writing necessarily. I wrote from my heart. I wrote from my personality. And people would be like, I feel like I know you. I was like, because you do. Because I'm actually just writing with my own voice. I'm not like, there's this completely authentic. And it's really me. And that was the way people connected. I named myself Will Chase on there as opposed to Burning Man, right? The From. And I fought Marion on this constantly, frankly. She wanted me to have it be from Burning Man. I was like, no, it should be from me because I'm a human being and people connect with human beings. And we want them to connect that way because we are one of them. I'm a participant just like anybody else. And people resonated with that. And often I would get asked, like, how do you speak to such a large and diverse audience? And I don't mean racially diverse, I mean culturally diverse. Everything from gearheads to hippies and everything in between. Like, how do you thread that needle? I was like, I drive down the middle of it. That's how. You find the common thread that everybody has, no matter what your actual life experience and your particular implementation of it is. Everyone was there for the radical self-expression. Everybody was there for the gifting. Everybody was there for the principles. And I spoke to those, and that spoke to what people believed. And just like the man is not gendered, right? It's not a man, it's not a woman, it's an it. And it's an it because the whole point is that you get to imprint your belief system on it. Whatever you bring to it, it can be yours. And so, doing that same kind of thing, like having it be, accessible to people like that. And speaking to that midline that everybody's got, the reason that they're going out there, then they can interpret, they can layer I'm from New Orleans and I'm, I make flowers, I make flower sculptures, and I can see myself in this story, of radical creativity, no matter who I am. And it worked. And I would hear from people. It was very gratifying, I got to say. It was, because I was sitting there, it was a thankless job, right? I was just like, I was hitting send and not knowing where things went. But what the gratifying part was when I would have conversations with people, they would find out who I am, and they would say, I need to tell you this. And they would tell me a story, a fucking fantastic story about their personal life or whatever it is. And often they would say, things like, I talked to this dude, he was a VP at a very big investment bank, like one of the big three, right? VP level, like very high level, the guys on CNBC all the time. And I see him apply, and he's like, you know what? I get my inbox is fucking stacked. He's like, when a jackcut rabbit comes in, I drop everything and I read it first. And he's like, I love it. I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, really? Okay. And to hear people, the people that impacted and influenced made it all worthwhile. Because, to be very honest, I flushed my financial future down the toilet by working for Burning Man as long as I did. I had an opportunity to be in tech and make a ton of money and shit. And I didn't. And I did it because of the impact that I was having, because I could not imagine a more powerful way for me to influence and impact and elevate more people in the world more powerfully than through this platform. And so it was worth it to me to sacrifice myself to do that, to give people that opportunity. That's why I was there. Burning Man is exceptionally safe for what it is, for the number of people out there doing the crazy shit that they do for as long as they do and as hard as they go. The amount of people who have been injured or died there is exceptionally small.
Agreed.
And that is a testament to radical self-reliance, in my opinion. When you give people, and this has always been, frankly, one of my pet peeves over the years, is the fact, we become this nanny culture where there's fences around everything and everything is safe, right? Everything is anybody who's walking around in the world can go anywhere and do whatever the hell they want, and without even thinking twice about their own personal responsibility of things, because they know somebody else has already made it safe for them. Mm. And when you go out there, none of that's true. And it's all on you. And suddenly you find the reserves in you that you didn't know you had. And that's one of the gifts that Burning Man gives you, is that sense of, I do have authority, and
I can hurt myself on this all I want.
And you have.
Yeah, and you can. One of my other favorite pieces of art out there was the ladder in 2000.
Oh,
yeah, that was a mistake.
It was a beautiful mistake.
That topped me. I could not.
I hated it.
Couldn't even attempt it.
I got 4 rungs up, and that was it. I was like, nope. And so, to give context around that, the ladder was a steel runged ladder out in the middle of the playa that was 105 feet tall and guy lined.
That is so tall.
Just straight up in the air.
Yeah, it's like a ladder back chair, but just the ladder part of it.
Correct.
If you don't work on ladders normally, you have to understand a 16-foot ladder is insanely tall. Yes. It is very scary to be at the top of a 16-foot ladder.
Yes. And so this was 105 feet. And it was guy lined.
Yeah, just 5 feet will kill you.
Yep. And it was, and the beautiful part about it, this is one of the reasons this was one of my favorite pieces of all time, because it speaks to who we are. And because there was no harness, there were no ropes, there was no guy, no nothing, nobody telling you what to do. There was no mat at the bottom that you could land on if you fall, anything. There was no instructions, and everybody had to figure it out for themselves. And if you are afraid of heights and you want to climb that ladder, you can fucking climb that ladder.
I did.
That to me is beautiful.
It was awful.
It was awful and terrible. And I did, like I said, I climbed 4 rungs and I was like, nope. But I watched people do it for a while, and people were, here was the beautiful part, is that people were climbing up and down, and there was no rules about which side you went up and which side you went down. So people were like getting, bumping into each other on the way, halfway up, right? Or whatever it was. And so there was multiple people on there at a given time. And so people had to sort of navigate that themselves. Right? And then by the time you're at the top of a 105-foot guy line, steel ladder, that thing's fucking moving. No matter what you do. You're like, no matter how well you guy line that thing, it's moving up there. Right?
Swing at least feet.
Oh boy. But no one died. Not a single person died. Not a single person got injured.
Steel doesn't break.
That for me was just like, wow, that says everything about who we are and what we're doing out here, and the permission that we can give people. And I was like, this is why I'm doing this.
Dumb and horny for heights.
Uh-huh.
When I saw that thing, I was like, okay, so if I know how to climb up a ladder. I don't like heights, but if I just stride up to this thing and start climbing up it and don't think about it, like, I'll be able to do this. And I was, and people were shouting, and I was like, no, it's okay. I'm doing a climbing thing this time. And they're like, someone's trying to get down.
That was it. That was the level of control that was there.
Yeah, and I was like, great, then this is high enough.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, what a fucking nut house. And the other actually, speaking of that, I mean, everyone thought a lot of people were die on that, and I just love that it stayed open the whole time and no one got injured or hurt.
Yeah, it's no night at the climbing.
Yeah, no
one died on that either.
Yeah, but that didn't stay open. Yeah, it had to
do you know the art piece has created that generated the most injuries?
The triangle,
the wedge, Yes.
Right. Yeah, it was the best.
Yep. And so the wedge was a giant, I don't know if it was 45 degree. It sure felt like it was.
Yeah, it felt like
that was 45 degrees.
Right? Well, here's the funny story about this. This is why I was working for the artery at the time. So I was there while they were setting it up. Right. And I would always go out and visit the art pieces, pre-event and check on people's progress and check in with them and say hi to them and shit like that. And I go out there to the wedge, and they had just set up this guy. So the wedge was a gigantic, wedge. I don't know how to describe it.
Covered in AstroTurf.
Yeah, one of the best titling jobs of the art on Playa ever.
Very quintessentially Burning Man art piece.
Yeah, white wedge.
It was a gigantic piece of scaffolding that you could climb the scaffolding, and then there was like the wedge was plywood, a plywood slide, basically, like really super wide and like 45-degree angle, so very steep and covered with AstroTurf. And people were sliding down all kinds of shit on it. And then people were breaking ankles and collarbones. And
of course.
People were going down that shit in kayaks.
They're getting ripped up by the AstroTurf, like lacerating their skin.
Yeah.
So my personal story around that one was I went out there pre-event and I would, that's when I would go on the art pieces because I hate standing in lines. And so I would get out there when no one was there before anybody else got there, and I would like do the thing. So they didn't have to do it later on, right? When everyone else is trying. And so I get out there and I see the wedge and I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I'm going to go down this. I'm going to try it. And I go up there and it's all plywood at this point.
Oh,
there was no AstroTurf. I did not know at the time that it was going to be covered in AstroTurf. And so I go down this thing on plywood thinking that this was what was the intention. So I slide down this thing on and the fact that I didn't get like 1,000 splinters up my ass is a miracle. I have no idea. But I slid to the bottom. It hurt like a motherfucker, right? And I get to the bottom, like, this thing sucks. And the landing was like abrupt.
Oh yeah, it's an ankle breaker.
It was an ankle break. It was like way too abrupt, and I hit that, and I'm like, what the fuck?
You got to run.
Yeah,
you run. You eat shit. You pop back up, you run a couple more steps, and you check to see how you're doing.
Exactly. And I get to the bottom, and they were like, and the guys who built it were there. And they find, and I didn't tell them that I was going to go do this. And they got to the bottom, and they were like, "You realize we're covering this with AstroTurf tomorrow?"
No, motherfucker, I don't realize shit.
I'm like, "Let's go again." Oh Lord.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is interacting with art and then finding out that like the artist is not done with the art yet, and they're there, and they're too polite to ask me and my loud ass friends to leave.
One of my other favorite pieces out there, that was that sort of created an interesting wrinkle in the Burning Man world, was the 747, which you mentioned before. That was one that came through the art approval process and got passed around the office because it was so funny, right? It was so absurd, and everyone's like, "What, really?" And it's like, no, look, this is what they're really proposing.
They're gonna bring it and take it away.
And so this went around the office, and quite frankly, nobody wanted to see it happen out there for all the various reasons, right? It's a pain in the ass. It's going to be a pain in the ass for DMV and DPW and everybody else, and it's just like the expense, and is this right to do, and all the things, and so everybody sort of in the org kind of systematically tried to shut it down through in their own department, right? Like whether it's DMV or whatever the reason they could come up with, they were trying to shut these guys down, and I wasn't having it. I wasn't part of the artery at that point anymore. This is when I was in the communications team. But I went to people. I was like, you know what, guys, this is what we should be supporting. We should not be telling these guys no. If we are Burning Man, if we are true to our principles, we should be finding ways to get these guys out there. We should be helping them, not thwarting them from doing this. We are here to help people do stupid ass shit. That's the whole point. And it's like, if we're not doing that, what are we here for? And everybody kind of eased up within the org and, started to be more amenable to their requests and the possibility that it could happen. And I started talking directly with Ken Feldman, who was the guy that orchestrated it. And I got on the horn with him, and I'm like, I'm your dude. Anything you need, you tell me, and I'm going to make sure it happens. Because I was like, I want to make sure you get your art out on the Plioxy because it's so fucking absurd. For no other reason. And I don't care if you fail or whatever. It's like, I want to, this is by on principle, this is what we're doing. And and it's out there for better or worse. And I don't think it was done as I would have liked it, to be honest, but they did it as they did it, and they fucking pulled it off. So I got a hand to them.
Yeah. I gotta say I was, underwhelmed by my experience on the 747. They brought it out. And the carpet was really cool. When I engage with art, I expect to have an art experience, and this was half of a plane with some funky carpet.
Yeah, yeah. I thought again though, but just them pulling it off, just amazing.
But did they pull it off when they left it the fuck there?
Yeah,
no, they pulled it on.
They did not pull it off.
Some art was produced.
Fair enough. At the same time, I'm the kind of guy. I'm a punk rock.
Yeah, Will told him that he'd help him figure it out.
That's right, and then I left.
Oh, you are kind of punk rock.
Oh yeah. Later. Cool.
You're the guy. That
47. Gotta go. Hey.
Do you have a least favorite piece?
I was
a
just
piece
gonna ask
that
that.
was just like such a pain in your ass, and you hated what it was saying, and you hated the whole thing.
Yeah, if I may ride on Beth's question there, could you be a catty little bitch about it?
And feel free to play it safe by naming a piece outside of your time in the art department.
We're gonna say no. There have been a handful of pieces over the years that were challenging for sure. There was a particular honorarium art, and I'm not being cagey about this. I honestly don't remember this person honestly it was forgettable. But it was this piece. It was an honorarium piece, and the guy came out and he brought all this stuff like junk, like it was going to be recycled bottles and all this other shit. And he completely shit the bed and didn't do it, lost his team, like it just built. And so he basically just left a big pile of garbage in the middle of the playa. And you're just like, what the fuck, dude? So that there were issues like that. now and again, of just people just weren't, didn't get it. People who didn't get what it would take to actually do it, pull off a piece out there. But honestly, whether you win or lose, fail or succeed out there, you've done it. You're trying, you're making something happen, you're moving things forward. One of the more
safe place to fail. Burning Man is a safe place to fail.
Like Jim Mason's slug was one of the more epic classic Burning Man failures, and in my mind was still a success.
Can you describe the slug?
I hope this is what I'm thinking of.
The slug was a gigantic vehicle on wheels that was going to be fully propelled by a gasification system that Jim Mason built. And it's a great system. I mean, it does work. It runs an engine on garbage. And but just the Burning Man being what it is, it just never got. I think it moved a grand total of 3 feet by the end of only by the end of the event.
Yeah, I saw it like on the last day when it was finally up and running.
Yeah, and it was torture to walk by because it was like you felt the tension of these poor guys, killing themselves, really killing themselves to get it done. And
I feel like that's part of the gallery when you're walking by the
art of Playa.
Exactly. I mean, you see these people like, these poor suckers that are out there like working at 3 a.m, 4 a.m. on their art piece that, that's still not up on Wednesday or Thursday of the event. I just feel so badly for them. But, that's what you get. That's what you're signing up for. I remember these dudes who were like doing a projection map on a big skull. Right?
Nice. Sounds good.
And these guys are sitting out there at this table with, a projector and a computer in the middle of the open playa, and it's dusty and shit. And they're sitting there trying to program this projection mapping to calibrate all the projections onto this complex skull. And it's like 4 a.m, and I watched them for nights, night after night. They were out there, like, because they had to do it at night too, because it was dark.
Yeah,
and to see the projections and these poor guys. I think they finally that was one, and they finally got it up like right at the end of the event, like for a minute. And then they brought it back the next year, and it was spectacular.
Fuck yeah, that's how you do it.
That's how you do it. You fuck up, and then you figure it out. And
you fail.
That's
you
right.
fail. You put your fucking face in the dirt, and then you do it better next time.
My favorite thing is when you've got this unbelievably impressive bit of novel tech that the world has never seen before. Just absolutely mind-blowing display, like the Tree of Tenere. And then 1 pixel is out. You can just make out this leaf that's like flickering,
flashing red,
all the time during all the blackouts.
I don't know if you guys know this, but the first Tesla was brought out there.
I did. That was in 07.
I actually just found a picture of myself standing perimeter when they under that burned man. Right before I burned all the skin off my nose.
07 was the second burned band, too. That was the Paul Addis year.
Oh, then that Tesla was was in man base with my buddy William's car that ran off waste vegetable oil.
Yeah, that was the first prototype of a Tesla, and Elon wanted to bring it out there to test it. Test it under those conditions, and also to show it off and stuff. But that's a nice little piece of trivia.
I mean, trivia, but so bleak and dark and awful.
Right.
Like in the face of what we're dealing with here in this country, and that fucking man now apparently a part of our government.
Major Domo
while
bring
he's
to Burning Man
being
in
a major arms distributor for the government.
Oh my God. All I can hope is that he learned his lessons at Burning Man and does something right. I don't know.
Doesn't seem like it.
No.
I think what we can hope is that he can't pass a single drug screening required to be a federal employee because he's constantly on ketamine.
No. They said that he was going to run a government agency outside of the government.
Right.
Yeah. Did you not know how stupid it is?
Oh my God. It's going to be insane, dude.
Well, at least the courts will hold. So that's good.
Very genuinely, though, as horrible as it is to say, art gets really good when the culture gets real bad.
Yeah, sometimes. You remember some real good art from like 2020, Beth?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm on your team. I'm on your team on that one. That's always my thought when fascism rolls into town. I'm like, well, at least the punk rock is going to be good.
Right, like we're gonna have to start really actually saying deep things with our art, and it happens all of the time. And then
We're just gonna get death art at Burning Man again.
Right. That's right.
no, it's futures past or whatever the theme is this year.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow's past.
Today.
TM.
I'll tell you one thing though. In the face of everything that we're facing, what's about to come, and honestly, I really, this is a personal opinion, I just don't think that America really understands what it just did, and
No.
they're about to find out. And
Most of us are being lied to all of the time.
yeah, what I'm hearing to one of them from the people who are trying to foment some sort of resistance around this is the answer is in community.
Yep.
Right. And community in the sense of creating a social safety net for the people who are most vulnerable so that they get protected. That's something we learned at Burning Man. That's something we learned how to do. We learned how to work with each other. We learned how to, help each other, give to each other and care. Right. And lean in and participate in things.
Hold space for other folks.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that the lessons that we've learned at Burning Man are now going to pay dividends for people who are out there in the world looking for ways to protect themselves and protect their families and others is by bringing together community, right? So yeah, I feel like, as always, it's a big party in the desert, and it's one with a lot of very valuable output beyond that is intangible and intrinsic, and you don't necessarily see it until you do. But the lessons that people have been packing into their brains coming off Apply every year accumulate to the point where they know what it means to have that kind of community around you. I like to say that Burning Man makes me feel like a superhero because I know I can get anything done, anything, because I have this network of people around me that are like-minded, that are brilliant, that are resourceful, caring and talented and innovative and and fearless kind of shit. And it's just like, I know that I can get anything done. And that's that's such a powerful place to be. And I have been going since 2001. This will be my 20 something burn. I've been going consistently except for the virtual burns. I feel like, I still do it because I go out there and I'm amongst those people. Right. I'm around some of the most amazing people in the world. And every year it's incredibly gratifying for me to be reminded of that and to immerse myself in those people and that place.
Well, that's the end of the episode right there.
Mic drop. Yeah.
There is nothing off the table anymore, and there doesn't seem to be a bottom floor. It can't happen here is something that we'll never say again, because it can. It's really happening. There is nothing off the table anymore, and the men in boots are marching past your door. Will you yell things out the window? Will you wave a little sign? Will you fight them? Will you join them? Will you hide and close the blinds? There is nothing off the table anymore. It's a bit too much like 1934. If you ever wondered what you'd do if you had lived back then, congratulations, it's happening again. But possibility swings both ways. At the risk of sounding silly, there might be some better days ahead. If they can dig a hole, we can make a hill. There is nothing off the table anymore, and the ship that brought us burns upon the shore. When we talked about apocalypse not being an event, but kind of more a process, this is what we meant. There is nothing off the table anymore. You may be lonely, angry, sad, and scared and bored. There's important work to do, and all you really have is time. Some of the work is legal, some of it is crimes. There is nothing off the table anymore. When the field is gone, nobody's keeping score. Well, the empire has no power. Everyone has hit the showers. In the field instead of lawn, 1,000 different flowers. But possibility swings both ways. At the risk of sounding silly, there might be some better days ahead if they can dig a hole. We can make a hill.
And that was Will. That was Will Chase.
It was Will Chase.
That was Will Chase.
Thank you, Will.
What a nice guy to talk to.
Yeah.
Just what a lovely human.
That was a super easy conversation.
Yeah, it really was.
It will, and he's got it will. It was.
It will.
And he's got more to tell. We'll likely have another Will Chase episode at some point in the near future when we hustle our asses up to Portland.
Yeah, listeners, if you have a topic that you want us to talk with Will Chase about, he has asked us what we are interested in talking to him about since he has such a huge breadth of history.
And as we're no longer interested in Burning Man and don't know what we want to talk about, by all means, please let us know what you want to hear us talk about with Will.
And of course, if you want to tell us what you're interested in talking with us about, you email us at accuracy3rd@gmail.com, all spelled out, no numbers in there. It's just letters. And come on our show, because our show is made out of you and your stories.
For better or worse.
Right now, feels a little worse. Not because of you.
Not because of you. Your stories are great.
But because of, just
because some of
everything.
You, apparently slightly over 50% of you, voted for the idiot fascist instead of the partially corrupt cop who may have slowed down our march toward fascism.
No. Sub 50%. It's just a plurality now.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
Did that happen like in the past couple days?
Yeah, all of those West Coast votes finally got counted. It's like 49.8%.
Hardly matters.
Yeah. It fucking sucks right now. And it feels really isolating to have this suck so much. And we're here in Oakland and San Francisco. I just wanted to also say hi to our friends that are in less friendly territories for, anti-capitalist, far leftist thought, or, kind LGBTQ positive places.
Yeah, Beth, you might have to move to this side of the bay before too long to continue to find that.
Oh my God, San Francisco's so fucking depressing. I cannot believe what we voted for this year.
I can.
I'm just so mad. No.
Just imagine the politics of some kid who just graduated college and is given a job that pays them at least $160,000 a year. Imagine the empathy that they have for the people around them.
We got a new park. That's good.
Sure.
Yay, park.
But that park was at the expense of civil rights, and we're not going to allow houseless people to stay there.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
or anywhere in the city limits.
Yeah, it's, if you've always been scared of witnessing abject poverty and that's why you didn't come to San Francisco, come now. And then you can not witness it and just feel the aching hurt on communities all around it.
But you can watch a bunch of assholes getting into robot taxis instead of paying actual people to drive them around, which was exploitative enough. But now you can be in a little fucking death buggy that just stops in the middle of the goddamn road for no reason, and there is no way to give that driver, which there isn't, a fine for fucking up traffic on 5th Street.
Yeah. The end times are really...
Dumb. So dumb.
They're so dumb.
But we're here to make you feel better.
Is that what we're here for?
I think so.
Yeah.
Look, I just want to know who decided that what we needed was the Verhoeven future. I never wanted a Johnny Cab.
I think Paul Verhoeven created the future because there's a whole lot of tech influencers and tech moguls and tech mavens who are not bright enough to get satire. They're bright enough to write code, but nobody taught them reading comprehension. So what they think that we want is the Neil Stephenson version of the future. A real good William Gibson, corporate-driven, poverty-fueled San Francisco Bay Area. It's going to be like 10 years people are going to be living hanging off the Bay Bridge.
I think I'd take a Neil Stephenson over Verhoeven. Like, I do not want the guys who think that Ed 209 is real cool to be running things.
Sure, but on the other hand, I don't want corporate citizenship.
No.
But I mean, we're already past that because corporate money is, speech.
Right.
We've already decided that, and that was decades ago.
Yeah, but I'm not like, say, a citizen of Target Incorporated whose civil rights associated with Target follow me around wherever I go.
I don't know. Did you read the last release you signed in order to buy a battery bank from Target?
I didn't. No.
Yeah. Who knows how
And you can't hold me to that because I didn't read it.
Listeners, if you'd like a little insight into how we got where we are now, highly recommend Master Plan by The Lever. It's a 11-episode podcast, and it's another banality of evil. We just walked right into this.
But if you would like a beautiful dream for the future, read The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson and see what future nano Burning Man could be like.
Yeah, Diamond Age is pretty great.
Right?
And if you're looking for other really smart people talking about the nightmare of late-stage capitalism, check out Citations Needed. They're incredible.
Did you just say Temptations Needed?
Citations Needed. Citations Needed. Boy, they have a really great episode out right now about all of this inflation that we're dealing with and where it has been coming from.
But the point is, not only do we live in a society, but we are genuinely a part of a community. And that is more important than ever right now. And that is something that you should start putting your feelers out to and making sure that you have the support structures that you need to get through the next 4 years. And maybe beyond that, because a lot of things are going to be broken very rapidly. Probably not immediately. Probably within the first 18 months of Trump's presidency, things are going to seem very normal before the stock market and the economy completely tank and government services are taken away. The sort of government services that you don't even know are the underpinnings of how our country works. But once that stuff is gone, even if we vote Democrats back into office for the next 3 or 4 presidential terms, classically, they haven't been people that we can trust to rebuild the government or provide things to the citizenry that we live among. So we really need to start doing that sort of thing for ourselves. If you are not familiar with tenets of anarchist thought like mutual aid, I recommend a podcast for you called It Could Happen Here. You should probably listen to it from the beginning. You don't have to listen to every episode. You can pick and choose. But the first handful of episodes are a treatise on what is happening right now and different ways that you and your community can mitigate the lack of government assistance by being people who know each other and are capable of assisting each other.
And if all of that, if really what is happening for you is this is just fucking too much, I'm also going to recommend My Dad Wrote a Porno. It is
Since when?
Several years ago that it came out, but it's still so fucking funny. And it has almost no politics in it. Or if it does have politics, they're English politics, so they don't matter. Just 3 kind of uptight English people reading this guy's dad's porno. It's really funny. It is like, it'll get a chuckle out of you every fucking time. Anything else we want to tell folks in these dark times? These bleak days?
Support us on Patreon.
Yeah.
Seriously, though.
Afford it.
If you can afford it, if you can't, don't even worry about it.
But more important than that, we have been doing this project for going on 8 years now. 9 years, maybe 10. We have had the luck to have been a part of a community before we started this podcast, but to definitely generate a very loving, open community through this podcast and what we are doing. And you should join us on Discord, not to, promote us or the things we're doing or anything, but we have a lovely group of people, not all of whom are like-minded, that are able to have respectful conversations with each other and figure out their problems and kindly argue through their opinions about what's going on in the world and with Burning Man and the org at large. there is a much more respectful and open conversation happening on our Discord about the org asking for donations than I've seen on any other social media platform.
Yeah.
And like, it's not that much more well-informed on our Discord, not like to piss on our Discord or anything, or any of our Discordians, but it is respectful and nuanced, even though there's a bunch of people not necessarily knowing what they're talking about.
Yeah, so it's like kind of the opposite of Reddit. If Reddit's bumming you out.
And boy, is Reddit bumming me out right now.
Yeah. Oh my God, you guys, if you don't have a sense of humanity, let me remind you that the Burning Man organization, the Burning Man Project, is made up of human beings that are working really hard and trying to solve some complex issues that no matter who you blame we're in these circumstances now. So these are people dealing with these circumstances. And, people are getting let go. People are retiring early. The shape of it, these actual people's jobs and lives are changing substantially. And it's hard for them. And like fucking every asshole on their Reddit is happy to say that there's some sort of simple solution that everyone is just fucking missing. So, if you're thinking about what it is to be in community, remember that everyone who's doing this is our community, even the folks you disagree with, even the folks that you think could have done a better job. And maybe you take like 5 minutes and really think about if you understand how this structure, which doesn't work like any other fucking structure I've ever run into, and that's working in nonprofits for years and years.
Yeah.
Like if you know anything about it before you decide to call people out, to shame them for job titles you don't understand, and a regular amount of money.
Nonprofit doesn't mean that the organization doesn't make a profit. If you don't know that, stop fucking talking about nonprofits like you do. I've spent 26, 27 years in that industry. I am a pretty bright professional with a goddamn master's degree. And there are so many people who work for fucking tech that are like 20 years my junior that think that they can condescend to me about how we should be doing our work because they have a bunch of rich fucking people that sell things so they know how to run a business. You don't. A nonprofit's a different thing entirely that is filling in the gap of shit that our government has decided it doesn't need to do for its citizens.
I feel like we should be able to add a Musk qualifier to the Dunning-Kruger effect. The richer you are, the worse the Dunning-Kruger effect is upon you.
A musky dumber effect. But seriously,
I have massive wealth. How could my opinion possibly be uninformed and irrelevant? Massive wealth.
So there are
massive wealth. Please continue.
So there are a lot of criticisms about what the org does and how, and like, I mean, functionally what the org does, not how the org talks to us. There are a lot of decisions that the org makes that I agree with, like getting rid of the coffee shop, that I think they communicated that horrendously to their volunteers and to the community. But what the org does is based on their nonprofit mission, which they had to submit to the Attorney General's office of the state of California to get their 501c3 nonprofit determination. The org is mandated, and the board members of the org support the Burning Man Project in doing what their mission states. So people online complaining that like, well, I want the org to produce the event, not to put art in the community or try to export our culture. Well, I'm fucking sorry. That's in the mission of the Burning Man Project. That is one of the two primary things that Burning Man Project was created to do. If Burning Man is going to stop doing that, they need to refile. It's like these are ridiculous arguments that completely take out the considerations of how expensive the event is to produce and how we don't want the ticket price to fully cover what the event does, or the event will be miserable.
And D-Day ranting here, we don't necessarily think that you, our listeners, are the folks that are shit posting. But like, you know, we're all pissed off, and Burning Man honestly feels like a thing that you might be able to have a say in over the things that we don't get any say in that are deeply going to be impacting our lives if they aren't already. So I definitely understand the desire to speak up and speak out around a thing that you care so deeply about. But like, you know, people, remember that they're people, and remember that we are people, and we're open to hearing your opinions about what is going on. If you're willing to come and talk to us and also tell us Burning Man stories and not just rant about nonprofits. But we like hearing it if you can do it in a way that is kind and considerate and exploratory, because, you know, this is all one big fucking experiment, and it's fun to talk about. It should be fun to talk about. It shouldn't be fucking exhausting and full of blame and shame to talk about. It should be interesting and engaging to talk about.
And please email us your opinions. One caveat, if you do email us your opinion, whether it's respectful or not, whether it's nice or not, one of the three of us will respond to your points thoughtfully and kindly. If at that point I will. I have before. And if you're listening to this, I think you know who you are. If you email us a pile of vitriol and I respond with 500 or 700 kind words explaining what our situation is and why it happened, and then you don't fucking respond to that, you're dead to me, son. Like, if you email us, please understand you are opening a dialogue with three people who you feel you have a deeper relationship with than we do, because we don't listen to you in our ears once every 2 weeks, and you listen to us. There is... that breeds a sort of familiarity with our voices and...
well, your voice when it's healthy.
Our voices when they're healthy. And our personalities, which you perceive through some very deep and stringent editing on my and Beth's part. But understand...
We do curate our personalities a little bit.
Yeah, we have to. I sound like a complete jackass, like... if I don't cut out at least a quarter of every sentence I speak. But what I meant to say is what I edited and put in your ears. And it's the same way we write. Like the first draft of my email back to you, I am much more of a dick on the first pass than on the third. But the whole point of this was everything is falling apart and Burning Man is asking for money and they're a nonprofit. And that's what they fucking do.
We were asked on our Discord in the Ask Us Anything, should you donate to Burning Man? And the answer is maybe. If you can afford it, if you are in a position to support a nonprofit with a charitable donation, and Burning Man's continued existence is important to you, probably yes.
And if you want a tax donation.
Yeah.
A tax...
write-off?
Yeah.
Tax write-off?
Tax deduction.
Yeah.
Tax deduction.
And remember that if you want to donate to the Burning Man Project and you can afford it, there's so many other ways to give your time and energy to this thing that we all love that aren't direct cash to org situation. So also, if you would love to be able to donate money but don't have it, consider volunteering. Consider... Passion is here. Hi, Passion.
Passion's here.
Hi. Consider volunteering. And now we're going to go record with Passion. So
we're going to need to do the outro afterward. So give me a shout.
The outro for...
we're produced by Music Wadi Doodah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Have fun.
All right.
Bobby Joe Ebola and the children Mac Nuggets.
Mac Nuggets or Mick Nuggets? Is there an A? Mac Nuggets.
Yeah, it's as far from Mac Nuggets as possible.
That's right. We talked about that.
We did. And their song is great. Their song is Nothing's Off the Table.
Their song makes me happy and sad all at the same time.
Yep, I shared it at my staff meeting the other day. My CEO asked for me to send her the link directly.
Thank you so much to
Professor Plague.
Professor Plague for letting us use your music. It's always such a delight to get to share the sound that I tend to think of as uniquely weirdo music.
Come back, weirdo.